Hello everyone. Before we get started today, I have a few housekeeping items to go over. My name is Keith Arnett. I'm the Business Development Director at Reformation Productions. Thank you all for being here today. This webinar will be available after today's presentation. You will get an email sent to the email address you used when you registered about it. If you didn't put the correct email for some reason, please let us know by sending an email to info@bzacharybennett.com and we'll make sure you are included. During the webinar, if you have questions, please type it into the chat. Zachary will be stopping throughout the presentation and set times to answer selected questions. If your question isn't answered during the webinar, he will address it afterwards via email. All questions will be answered. The last webinar he did for SCORE turned into a Q&A episode for Straight Shot Marketing Podcast, so all questions will be answered. There will be polls that pop up during the webinar for you to fill out as well. Now, I'm going to turn it over to our presenter, Zachary, who is going to tell you a bit about himself and then get right into the content of today's presentation, Surviving COVID-19 as a Business. Before I do that, I just want to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Reformation Productions, who is a full-service marketing agency. That is, they do consulting, creative work, and communication services. You can get more information about them at reformationpro.com. Now, our presenter, B. Zachary Bennett.
All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you, Keith. I appreciate it. I'm just going to take a minute here and pull up my screen. All right. So who can tell me who this guy is? That's right. This is Michael J. Fox, star of Back to the Future series and Teen Wolf and so many other things. Does anyone know what his middle name is? No, it's not Justin. It's not James. It's not Jacob. It is Andrew. He added the J because Michael Fox was this guy. And in all the actor databases in the 80s, they had him listed, and Mr. Fox didn't want to be confused with Mr. Fox. So he added the J to his name. He also didn't think Michael A. Fox sounded very humble. So that's the story of how he became Michael J. Fox. Now, in today's day and age, our database is the internet, right? Google. So if you type Zachary Bennett into the internet, you will get this guy. And as much as I would like to be a younger actor out of Canada, I am not. So to find me, you will have to use my first initial. That is why you see the B in B. Zachary Bennett. I just thought that I would clarify that. It is a question that I get often after I get done speaking. What's with the B? So it's my first name, so ask my mother. So if you want to reach me on the internet, you have to use the B. B. Zachary Bennett. Now, these are all the places that I am on social media, and you can see that B. Zachary Bennett is prevalent in there. So the easiest way to reach me is straight through my website. All the social media links are there in case you find value in today's talk and you would like to follow my content. That's where you go to find all of the links without having to try to write it all down for the screen before this. Now, I'm getting ready to tell you a little bit about myself and why on earth anyone would think that you should listen to me. But before I do that, tell me a bit about yourself so I know who I am talking to and kind of understand where you are in the business owner entrepreneurial journey. So there should be a poll that pops up just so I get an idea about you and your business life. So while you're doing that, I'm going to continue to tell you a little bit about me and my place in this world. I am a business communications executive. I am the president of a marketing agency where I serve as creative director and strategic director. I am also a focus group moderator, so I'm involved in consumer research. I do one-on-one consultations and business coaching, and I also serve as an outsourced CMO or chief marketing officer to several businesses in the region as well. So Beyond that, I am also what they call an SME, or subject matter expert. I just actually last month just released my first book, which is called Married to Marketing. It is a comparative walk through human relationship building and the processes and commitment of owning a business and building relationships with your customers to then promote your business to reach success. Yes, there are many parallels between relationship building, romantic relationship building, and business relationship building. And that's kind of what the book is about. It's a relationship guide to business. It's called Married to Marketing. If you're interested in it, it's available on Amazon and via my website as well. So what else do I do? I am a podcast host. I have a show that comes out every other week called Straight Shot Marketing Podcast. It is for business owners and entrepreneurs. In it, I discuss best practices. I give tips, warnings. We take Q&A. We also do case studies. And it is centered around how marketing impacts everyday life so that you can see the role that business communication plays in the society around us. I am also a keynote speaker. I do a lot of speaking engagements around the country, and COVID has put a big kibosh on that. So obviously, most live speaking engagements have stopped. So that is why I am doing the podcasts today. So why do I do all of this? Well, I do all of it because I believe that knowledge is power, and that an enlightened business owner is a better business owner. I believe in free enterprise, pure capitalism, and the freedom of destiny. That is to say that I believe in the American dream. I believe if you come here, you put your mind to it, you can do anything. And I support business owners in doing that because I think that the small business owner contributes to our economy. It also, having a business helps them provide for their family. It helps provide for their employees' families, all through realizing their dreams, right? Finding a need, finding a passion, and fulfilling it. And so I support that. And so aside from my day job, I do an awful lot of education for that reason. Now, speaking of day jobs, the sponsor for today, as Keith had mentioned, is Reformation Productions. They are the agency that I work for in my day job. You're welcome to check them out, reformationproductions.com. Thank you for sponsoring today. Now, in preparing for this webinar, I had to think to myself, okay, what would be relevant to the business community today? What would be a topic that would bring value to the community? And what could I say that was unique within that subject that would bring value to the business community? So here we are. We're going to talk about the corona pandemic and its effect on the business community. Now, what am I not going to do? Because I've seen you guys on social media. We are not going to debate the seriousness of COVID-19 as an illness. We're not going to debate quarantine as a response. And we're not going to debate who is at fault that we are in the pandemic. Because bottom line, it is here. The pandemic is here, and it is hurting the business community. So that's the focus that I'm going to talk about today. Whether you wear masks or not, whether you believe that COVID is a hoax or not, doesn't matter, because the pandemic is real. And that's what we're going to talk about because of its effect on the business community. So today's objectives and what we're going to discuss are as follows. What can we learn from this pandemic? So that's number one. Second, what can we do to survive it? Because it has had a real impact on the business community. And then lastly, what can we do to thrive in spite of it? And that's the trick, right? So those are the three areas that we're going to be talking about. Now, before I move on, I want you to tell me a little bit about you, because the pandemic has impacted different industries in different ways. So another poll should pop up so that you can tell me what industry you are in and so that I kind of get a gauge for that as I'm going through the webinar here as well. All right, so let's jump in here. What can we learn? I'm going to talk through this section using my 3 pillars analogy. All successful, sustainable businesses are built on 3 pillars: administrative, that's your back office, communications, and operations or production. Now, a friend of mine from the SBDC, Benny Santaromana, added a top layer during a Straight Shot episode that we did not too long ago. He called the 3 pillars legs to a stool. And he said that leadership, management, was the seat that sat on top of that stool. And I agree with him, but I have to give him credit for adding that layer to the analogy. But we're going to be talking about those 3 legs, this analogy, and explaining through the what can we learn part of today's webinar. So let's talk about the woulda, coulda, shouldas using this analogy. But before we do that, we have to have an understanding. And that understanding includes the fact that crisis exposes mistakes and flaws in our lives. It always has. Doesn't matter what the crisis is, it will reveal things about us, about our own lives. Now, Corona taught us that the impossible is possible. You know, despite history, we never believed that something like this could happen. And I say despite history because we've had, you know, plagues and famines and all sorts of things that have completely demolished societies before. But I guess since it hasn't been in recent generations, we just didn't believe that it could happen to us. And from a leadership standpoint, we simply weren't ready. The pandemic exposed a lack of preparedness in our government, in our society, and in our businesses. We simply weren't ready for anything like this. Now, Corona taught us what America considers to be essential. When the governors of our states came out and issued the stay-at-home, shut down your business, secure-in-place order, then many leaders, business owners, started examining their purpose to see if they fit within the government-mandated term, essential. Guys, self-reflection is good as people and as a business. A lot of the brand development process that I lead companies through involves self-reflection and self-realization. Now, I believe that all businesses are essential to someone. That's why they exist. But you need to know that as the business owner. You need to know that. You need to have the thinking and the data to back up that decision that you have made as to who is your business essential to. I certainly would have never imagined that pizza delivery would be considered essential in America. That is until we realize that some people don't know how to cook. It's true. Sad, but true. Okay, that's funny. But it is interesting to see what businesses considered themselves to be essential and stayed open once the governor issued that shutdown, stay-at-home order across all of our states. The next leadership and administrative lesson has to do with the need to invest in your future as a business. Business as usual, that's the way we've always done it, kind of cliche, isn't adequate during a pandemic. We'll talk more about that in a minute, but we've seen businesses scramble to build and implement communication tools and operational processes that they didn't have because we were unprepared. And we put off things that we knew we should have been investing in all along. We learned that we have to work at the speed of our customer. A key to a business is being able to fully understand your audience in order to adapt to their wants, needs, and lifestyles quickly. Buying habits have changed dramatically since this pandemic started. Invest in getting to know your consumer base. This is called consumer research. Study them, get to know them, learn them. There are several tools and processes available to help businesses to do this. That's how important consumer research and knowing your targeted audience is. Now, moving on to the next pillar in a successful business, communications or marketing. We've learned that communication is key. If you didn't know it before, communication is a foundational need in business. You have to have ways to communicate with your audience, and that includes your workers, employees, your customers, and partners, the other businesses and vendors that you work with. Natural assumptions of looking on the bulletin board to get their schedule to see when they're working, or driving by to see if you are open, or coming by on your normal, delivery schedule as a vendor simply aren't good enough during a pandemic. Quarantine has also created a desire for communications. Once people were stuck in their homes, their need to know became stronger and stronger. People began devouring up digital content in ways like they never have before. Things like video and movies and podcasts and social media in general. And that has proven that digital communication has become essential in our business community. Social media, podcasts, your online presence, anything and everything that a business can do via the internet. Other forms of communication like signage and flyers and reading materials, in person of any sort, are all less feasible during a pandemic. And now you must use your digital communication channels to talk with or market to your customers. So, Zachary, you tell me that I need to communicate, but I'm shut down or have limited hours and I have nothing to say. Yes, you do. At bare minimum, you should be keeping in touch with your audiences and letting them know that you aren't out of business. Let them know how to work with you during the pandemic if you have limited offerings or specialized services. If you are closed, then sympathize with them. We are all going through this together. Reassure them that once the pandemic is over, you will reopen. If your services are very personalized, like a hairdresser or nail salon, a chiropractor, something like that, reach out to your customers and let them know how they can maintain in your absence. They will love you for it, and that builds loyalty. Now, if you don't have ways to communicate digitally, that will go into the column of things that you need to survive this pandemic. You've got to have those tools, those communication tools available and in use. Now, we've talked about leadership, big picture lessons learned, and communication lessons learned. What about operations? Well, operations has to have a plan B. We've just always done it this way is no longer an acceptable way of thinking. Businesses have had to change their normal operations to still operate during this pandemic. So a few Corona-inspired offerings that have come up. Delivery, restaurants, bakeries, retailers, places that have never considered local delivery are now offering delivery because people can't come to their shops. Contactless delivery. Places that did deliver, like pizza businesses, are offering contactless delivery to make people feel safe when they order from them. Curbside pickup. The only company that I knew of that had curbside pickup that wasn't a drive-through was Applebee's. And now Best Buy offers curbside pickup, as do a lot of other places. E-commerce. That's a big one. Shops that have been dependent on in-store browsing have had to move to developing online content and having e-commerce sales as a way to continue operating. So moving on to the next section. That was what we learned. Now, what can we do to survive this pandemic? Survival is a great motivator for people. First, I would say that we need to utilize the government programs. A lot of business owners dislike the government. They dislike contracts. They don't want to go through the hassle. Listen, every business in this country has been affected by this pandemic. In Washington is trying to keep our national economy afloat. And that's quite a task when they've also told people that they can't go out and earn a living. So they've developed two programs to help. PPP, which is the Payroll Protection Program. This program was developed to help employees, the American people, to keep their jobs when many businesses would ordinarily be forced to furlough them or lay them off. It was also to help keep people off of unemployment when they had a job waiting for them once the pandemic was over. It all started as part of the CARES Act, which was modified with the PPP Flexibility Act, and now they are working on it again with the HEALS Act. But basically, the government is giving money to businesses to keep their employees on payroll. Now, this is in the form of a loan. However, that loan is forgivable if you use the funds for its intended purposes, which includes currently 60% must be used for payroll and 40% can be used for other expenses that the business might have. Here's a graphic that we used on Straight Shot Marketing Podcast social media that has a little more detail. Another thing to note is that even if you don't think you can use it for the intended purpose, if you do need to use it as a non-forgivable loan, and I think most of us could use the majority of it as a forgivable loan, but if you need to use it for other things, it's only a 1% loan, guys, which is unbelievable. It's deferred for 10 months, and the terms are 2 to 5 years. So even as a loan, the PPP program is one of the best things that you'll ever see. A 1% loan. How much is your credit card APR, right? So if you need capital, number one, it's forgivable if you use it in a certain way. And even if you don't use it in a certain way, it's only at 1%. So it's a really great program that they have put together. The second program is called EIDL, which stands for Economic Injury Disaster Loan. It's another low-interest loan, but this one is currently not forgivable, with the exception of the advance when you first apply. That is forgivable. It's usable as working capital. So any expense that you need to keep your business operating, that's payroll, marketing, office supplies, utilities, all of your normal business expenses. However, you cannot use the funds for expansion. You can't use it as seed money to open a new location or to expand your current facilities, because that isn't the purpose. That's not the spirit in which this program was developed. So stay true to its purpose, and you'll be fine. Now, for small businesses, that's people with 500 employees or less, it is a 3.75% loan. For nonprofits, it's a 2.75% loan. It is deferred. The payments are deferred for 12 months, which again, great terms. So don't be scared of these programs. Now, if you need some help, reach out to me. I have contacts at the SBA that I can refer you to that will help you further understand the process of what these government programs are. But I believe that they are doing their best to sustain and keep our economy, and that's through supporting our business structure across the country. So I don't think really that they're after you in the way that a lot of business owners may be fearing. But you need to talk to somebody a little closer. Like I said, I have contacts with the SBA, the SBA's, all the programs that they have. I can put you in touch with one of them. But, most of your bankers, they know this stuff too, because the SBA is a guarantee of loans that are through other banks. So if you say you have Bank of America, you can go in there, they can talk to you about this stuff. They know. Maybe not PPP, but the EIDL, they definitely can. All right. So those are government programs. The other thing that you can do is explore private sector programs. Facebook had a program. Lots of different places are having some sort of corona relief program for businesses. You just have to look out there, explore, find out what they are. When the stay-at-home place shutdown order, is what I call it, first came into effect, I put up a listing on my website. I believe it was at bzacharybennett.com/C19, if you want to go there and look at it, that listed a lot of these programs and a lot of things that would help the small business community. I put that out via my social media. And a lot of those links update over time. So please feel free to go there and look through and see if any of those resources can help you. The other thing that you can do during this to survive is to renegotiate the terms of contracts and debts that you have. A lot of places understand that the whole country is in this, right? So there's been lease forgiveness, not the whole lease, but, a month or whatever it is, a half a month, whatever. There's been, I know that my cell phone company did a thing where they would not charge any late fees during the pandemic because they knew that people couldn't pay their bill. It wasn't their fault. Lots of things that are out there that you can reach out to them, see if there's anything that they can do, and kind of renegotiate what the terms are, and however that may affect you. The example I have here on the screen is from the Apple Card, but there's lots of things that are out there. Fourth thing that we had to do to survive, personally I had to do to survive for sure, is adjust to virtual meetings. Now, I like to meet with people face to face and talk to them and get a feel for them, body language, all of that. And we simply cannot do that right now. So we've had to adjust to virtual meetings like Zoom, like this webinar, and really take our business through a different set of processes than we were used to. So adjusting to that is something that we've had to do to survive. Another thing that we can do to survive is adjust our spending habits and reallocate our budgets. Say, for example, you were getting ready to buy your staff all new uniforms. Well, being as your business can't open now and your staff can't meet people face to face, maybe it's best to reallocate that money into another area where you can operate right now, right? In order to make the most out of what you have as a business during this time. So say you were going to renew your billboard, right? Because Atlanta is a great place for billboards with the constant long commute here going to and from Atlanta. Well, we don't know when this pandemic is going to be over. So maybe you can suspend that renewal, right? You can't cancel it. But maybe you can suspend the renewal if it falls during this time until a better time, and then reallocate the money that was for that towards something that will serve your business now. Now, that being said, there are risks involved in that. I'm not telling you to abandon everything that you've done, because somebody else could snatch up your billboard in that time frame. But it's an example of the types of things that I'm talking about. You need to prioritize what is critical in your operations at this time, right? So the things that you need to do that are critical to your survival right now, that's where you need to be spending your money. That's where you need to be spending your time. What are the tools and the processes that are necessary for you to survive during this pandemic as a business? What you would like to do at this point, we're in survival mode. So nice and cushy to do things this way may not be an option anymore, right? So now we have to move into what can we do, prioritize those things to stay relevant in the community, to keep some income coming into your business, and to be compliant with whatever the government has told us. So it's some things you need to think about with prioritizing your operations in your business. So now, the third thing that we were going to talk about: how do we thrive? How do we succeed despite COVID, or in spite of COVID, right? What can we do during this time in order for us to come out ahead whenever it ends up being over? Well, the first thing is we can learn from the lessons that we mentioned before, right? That's huge. So get to know your customer target better. We talked about the need to be able to respond at the speed of your customers. Getting to know your customer target better is a key part of that. It's also the key part of a lot of other things in your business communications. Now, that involves consumer research. That is knowing what your consumers' common demographics are, right? Very important for you to know at this time. Where do they live, work, and play? What are their habits? What are their habits during this time? Again, things that you need to know. What do they like? What do they dislike? If you've never gone in and invested in knowing this about your customers, now is a good time to do it. How can you influence them to choose you in the marketplace? All of that is based on your knowledge of what you know. You need to know what they think about you or your product or service, because it is likely to be very loud to them right now because they can't get it, or they can't get it as easily as they could. You need to compile that data, gather that data, and really study up on who your customer is, both now and when you're open, because right now, a lot of businesses, you have the time to do it. So you need to invest in that area, get that done. All of that consumer research goes into giving you the ability to make an informed strategy, a strategic, well backed up by data decision for what you're going to do moving forward. Strategically, a lot of what you're going to do is going to be based on how you're going to reach those customers. That information is vital to having that smart, forward-thinking strategy. Other things that you can do: explore different offerings. What are things that you can do now that can replace what you've always done? So look at all of the different possibilities that are out there. Like I said earlier, if you are a retail shop, can you do e-commerce, right? Oh, I don't have a e-commerce section to my website. Get one, right? Have it built. So that way you can still continue to sell your pretty dresses without your customers having to go to Amazon to do it. So these are the possibilities of opportunities that you have. Curbside pickup. If you've never done it before, because most people hadn't, it is now a thing. So, maybe you introduce curbside pickup. Zoom consultations. I have a client that's a counselor, right? They usually have people come in for their sessions, lay on the couch like they're in The Sopranos and talk about whatever their problems are. Well, the stay-at-home order and the social distancing has made that very difficult. So they've had to move to having online consultations. Now, is that more difficult? Yes, but it's a way for her to continue as a stopgap, as a bridge during this time. The other thing is delivery. A lot of restaurants, not only restaurants, but stores are delivering and that never would have before. You can go get curbside pickup from Best Buy, of all places, right now. So they've always had the, ship direct to store, but now you can ship direct to store, call them, and then they'll bring it out to you. all because of COVID. Now, in order to make these new offerings happen, they had to develop new technology to make it happen. So a lot of them developed apps where you can, push a button and let them know that you're here, or you can pre-order, or you can whatever, so that these new opportunities are better and more useful for the consumer. So those are things to look at. That being said, now is a good time for you to invest in your digital presence, because digital presence will not go away. Okay, it is here to stay. Now that includes your website. We talked about e-commerce a minute ago. Maybe you've always thought, hey, I don't need a website. You do. Okay, so now's a good time to invest in that. Social media. If you hadn't been on social media, that's how people are communicating right now. So in order to be relevant, you need to be on social media. Podcasting is another one. People are devouring digital content right now. Everybody's already watched all the movies on Netflix, right? All that binging is done. And so a lot of people are turning to things like podcasts and other methods to keep themselves entertained while they're stuck at home. Digital advertising. Maybe you've never done digital advertising before. Well, right now, traditional advertising isn't working as well because, like I said, the billboards, the commute is down. So it's not as effective as it was. Same thing with radio spots. Radio spots always thrive during drive time. With everybody staying at home, drive time's gone down, right? So digital advertising, maybe you've never done it. Maybe you need to. The other thing is apps. I just talked about Best Buy, and I'm sure you've seen them. A lot of the different companies now have developed apps as a way to make these new processes work. And so those are some areas that you can invest in your digital presence, because digital presence is now essential. Limited or contactless society is what's normal right now. Some people are calling it the new normal. And so one of the truths that we know about our society, people don't like change, but once they change, they don't like to go back either. So whether we agree with it or not, there are certain things that we have to do in order to be relevant to the marketplace. And digital presence is one of those things. People are now devouring digital content at an unprecedented rate, and we have to provide digital content in order for us to be relevant in the marketplace. So we need to grow those aspects of our business, build virtual capabilities for all of our offerings, build e-commerce, build an app, build or use mobile communications. There's lots of things that we can do in these areas. Utilize social media and podcasts to reach your audience at this time. Social media, that's both foundational participation, which is putting the content up on your social media platforms on a regular basis. That is content that needs to be engaging, connective, entertaining in most cases. And then also advertising via social media. A lot of people never thought to advertise with their business on social media. Social media is a very targetable way to advertise. So that's something to think about. The other thing is podcasts, like I mentioned. You can start your own podcast. If you don't want to start your own, you can sponsor other podcasts, which is very similar to advertising, in order to make the most of what's going on during this time. Because that's the key to succeeding in spite of this, is take advantage of the time that we have and do the most that you can with it. So now is the time to build new things, but also to make improvements. If you have a digital presence, what can you do to improve it? What can you do to make it better, to make yourself more competitive in this new normal? So improvements. It's also a time to play catch up. Do things that you haven't been able to do, right? Improve your branding. Get a better definition of who you are, or start a new campaign. Update your marketing tools. Your digital tools, yes, we talked about that, but also maybe your collateral materials. Maybe you won't use them now, but if you needed to do it anyway, if you needed to invest in updating your materials and you couldn't because you kept using them, Well, a lot of people now aren't using them as much. So now is a great time to play catch up and finally do those updates that you needed to do to your collateral materials. Now, for those of you that don't know what collateral materials are, that's your flyers, your folders, your business cards, anything that you use that is paper tangible that you use to communicate your business. The other thing, like I mentioned before with consumer research, get to know your target better. You can never know your customer well enough. That's a big piece of the book that I just finished called Married to Marketing. It's getting to know your target customer. They're your spouse. Your business is married to them, right? So you need to know them and communicate with them on a regular basis. Now, the other thing to know is that all of this that I've talked about are all legitimate uses of the EIDL funds, right? This is all normal working capital, all right? Marketing investment, new business investment, all of that is a legitimate use of EIDL. So a lot of people have been panicking about, well, what can I use it for? What can I use it for? Working capital, that's the key. Anything that you would normally do or would normally need to do that you may have been ignoring is what you can use that money for. What you cannot use it for are things like opening up a new building and expanding a new location and those sorts of things. They do want you to be able to maintain your business. And that's what we're talking about. What can we do to maintain our business and to help it be successful when this thing is over? So the fifth thing, make the best use of your time. Be ready and prepared when this thing is over. I think that we're doing it gradually, but once this is over and the kids can finally go back to school and all the businesses can be open, and people are not going to want to be at home because they have been at home. So there's going to be a lot that happens in our society, a lot where people are trying to, if you're a B2B business, once we're blessed to all go back to a full-fledged economy, we are going to be running as a society. Whereas people are trying to, hey, I lost money in the past quarter, we need to make that up. So I think that once this is finally blessed as being over, we are going to be moving, and we're going to be moving fast as a business community. So something to think about that. So those are the three areas that I wanted to cover with you today. Thank you for being here. I do have a gift for someone. I am going to be doing a free drawing where we'll be giving away a copy of the Married to Marketing book to some of the participants here. I'll give away paperback, ebook, and audiobook, so one of each of the three. Now, in order to be in this drawing, you need to register for it, which means you need to go to the website bzacharybennett.com/webinar, and then there's a code you will have to use. The code is C19. What that lets me know is that you are from this webinar, and your entries will be verified from the webinar registration roster to make sure somebody didn't just find the page and want to be in the drawing and steal that chance from you guys. So those are some of the rules. What we'll do is we'll go through all of the entries, verify the entries, and then select a winner. And then we'll probably announce it on the Straight Shot Marketing Podcast. I'll also send out everybody an email to let you know as well. So while you're going through registering for that, I'm going to start answering some questions. If you put a question in the chat box, they're going to give me some here in a minute, and I will field through those.
I'm going to put a link in the chat. If you don't mind, everyone please go there to tell us your thoughts on the webinar today, how we did, and topics you might want to see future workshops on. Okay, that brings us to a close for today. If you had a question that didn't get answered yet, Zachary will get back with you via email. You can feel free to type your question right up until the close of the webinar here. So you might be able to hurry up and get it in. Thank you, Zachary, for joining us today. For those of you that are interested in getting his book, you can go to bzacharybennett.com or search Amazon for Married to Marketing. Again, thank you all for joining us here today. I trust you found value in today's presentation. The webinar will be made available after today. The information about how to get it will be emailed to you to the email address you used when registering. If you didn't register with a valid or correct email address, send an email to info@bzacharybennett.com to be included. Now, that concludes our webinar today. Thanks again for attending. We look forward to seeing you next time. Have a wonderful day.